Don't thank me, thank our master electrician here, old Barney Poo.
There's a reason why the name, Mayberry, still brings a smile to so many faces. In a time of cultural upheaval, war abroad, and civil unrest at home, the Andy Griffith Show offered something increasingly rare: peace. It was a world where kindness ruled, where lawmen solved problems with wisdom instead of violence, and where the biggest scandal might be a fish that got away. From 1960 to 1968, viewers didn't just watch a sitcom, they were invited into a simpler, gentler place, one that felt more like home than any fictional town had a right to. At the center of it all was Andy Taylor, the sheriff without a gun, played with warmth and humility by Andy Griffith himself. Around him bloomed a cast of unforgettable characters: Barney Fife, Aunt Bee, Opie, Floyd the Barber, Helen Crump, Goober, Otis, and dozens more. Their chemistry wasn't just scripted, it was alive, organic, and quietly magical. They made us laugh, they made us feel safe, and in the best moments, they made us believe in the good that still existed in the world. But time, as it always does, has taken its toll. The streets of Mayberry have long since gone silent, and many of the beloved faces that once walked them have faded from this world. Andy is gone. So is Barney. Aunt Bee's kitchen is quiet. Floyd's barbershop chair sits still. And while the show lives on in syndication, reruns, and the hearts of fans, the people behind it are no longer here to wave hello from the front porch. In this video, we're taking a walk back through the sleepy lanes of Mayberry, not to relive episodes, but to remember the actors who made them real. From the iconic to the underappreciated, each one left a piece of themselves in this town they helped build. And in honoring them, we rediscover why the Andy Griffith Show still matters today. These are not just celebrity obituaries. They are quiet goodbyes to the ones who made us laugh, made us think, and made us feel at home. Their stories didn't end when the final episode aired, they continued in other roles, in quieter lives, in illness, in loss, and in legacy. So join us, as we pay tribute to 10 stars of the Andy Griffith Show who are no longer with us, but whose memories still linger like the sound of a distant whistle across a summer afternoon. Andy Griffith, the sheriff who made America feel safe. Andy Griffith wasn't just the star of the Andy Griffith Show, he was its soul. As Sheriff Andy Taylor, he brought a calm, steady hand to a world that often felt uncertain. With a soft southern drawl and a kind twinkle in his eye, Griffith portrayed a father, a friend, and a lawman who solved problems not with fists or fear, but with patience, reason, and understanding. In an era where television was becoming louder and flashier, Andy offered something revolutionary: stillness. Born in North Carolina in 1926, Griffith's roots were deeply Southern, just like the fictional Mayberry he would one day lead. Before stepping into the role that defined his career, he gained acclaim on Broadway and in film, most notably in A Face in the Crowd, 1957, where he played a ruthless drifter-turned-celebrity, a stark contrast to his later roles. But it was in the Andy Griffith Show that his true identity as a storyteller, moral compass, and everyman found its perfect home. Off-screen, Andy was known as a private, sometimes guarded man, deeply devoted to his craft and to North Carolina, where he lived most of his life. He struggled with health issues over the years, including Guillain-Barré syndrome, which temporarily paralyzed him in the 1980s. Yet, he always returned to acting, and later found renewed success in Matlock, once again playing a figure of justice and decency. Griffith passed away on July 3, 2012, at the age of 86, at his coastal home on Roanoke Island. True to his nature, there was no grand Hollywood memorial, no media circus. He was buried within 5 hours of his death in a quiet, private ceremony, just as he had requested. For millions, his passing felt deeply personal. Andy wasn't just a character on a show, he was a presence in our living rooms, our memories, and our hearts. He reminded us of who we were and who we hoped to be. And though Mayberry may be fictional, the sense of safety and goodness that Andy Griffith gave us was profoundly real. Don Knotts, the nervous deputy who stole every scene. If Andy Taylor was the heart of Mayberry, then Barney Fife was its wildly beating pulse, erratic, excitable, hilarious, and unforgettable. Played to perfection by Don Knotts, the high-strung deputy with a badge too big and a gun too small became one of television's most iconic comedic creations. Barney didn't always get it right, in fact, he usually didn't, but he made sure that viewers laughed and, more often than not, felt something deeper behind the punchlines. Don Knotts was born in 1924 in West Virginia and grew up in a modest household. His early life was marked by hardship and anxiety, traits he would later channel into his nervous, wide-eyed comedic style. After serving in World War II, he turned to acting, gradually making his way to national fame through variety shows and early television. When the Andy Griffith Show launched in 1960, Knotts' chemistry with Andy Griffith was immediate and electric. Barney Fife was ambitious yet insecure, loyal yet chaotic, and endlessly endearing. The role earned Knotts 5 Emmy Awards for Best Supporting Actor in a Comedy, an almost unmatched achievement at the time. Behind the scenes, he and Griffith were real-life friends, their bond fueling much of the show's emotional depth and comic timing. Knotts left the show after 5 seasons to pursue a film career, starring in hits like The Ghost and Mr. Chicken and The Incredible Mr. Limpet. Though he never quite escaped Barney's shadow, he embraced it later in life, often appearing in nostalgic tributes and reunions. In the 1980s, he found a new generation of fans as Mr. Furley on Three's Company. Don Knotts passed away on February 24, 2006, at the age of 81, due to complications from lung cancer. Even in his final moments, he was said to have been cracking jokes, his spirit intact until the very end. Barney Fife was the kind of character who could make you laugh until your sides hurt. But Don Knotts made sure he also made you care. He wasn't just comic relief, he was the beating, bumbling, beautiful soul of Mayberry. Frances Bavier, the matriarch who brought warmth to Mayberry. In the world of the Andy Griffith Show, there was no smell more comforting than something baking in Aunt Bee's oven. As the doting, sometimes meddlesome, always loving aunt to Sheriff Andy Taylor and a mother figure to young Opie, Frances Bavier's portrayal of Aunt Bee became the emotional backbone of the series. She didn't carry a badge or swing a guitar, but her presence made Mayberry feel like home. Frances Bavier was born in 1902 in New York City, a far cry from the small-town southern charm she would come to embody. Trained in theater, she had a sharp mind and a commanding presence that made her a respected stage actress before transitioning to film and television. When she took on the role of Aunt Bee in 1960, it was a striking transformation, from the world of Broadway to the gentle rhythms of Mayberry. On screen, Aunt Bee was nurturing and proud, fiercely independent, and always ready with a homemade pie or a word of wisdom. Yet behind the scenes, Frances Bavier was reportedly quite different. Colleagues described her as private, sometimes difficult, and deeply serious about her craft. She often struggled with the light-hearted tone of the show and rarely socialized with the rest of the cast. Some even noted that she disliked the role of Aunt Bee, feeling it typecast her in a way that belied her theatrical background. Despite that tension, she delivered a performance that left a lasting mark. Aunt Bee was beloved by viewers for her strength, her humor, and her quiet resilience. She remained with the show for its entire run and continued into the short-lived spin-off, Mayberry RFD. In her final years, Bavier lived in quiet seclusion in North Carolina, far from Hollywood. She passed away on December 6, 1989, at the age of 86, from heart failure and other complications. Her funeral was small, much like her life had become, but for millions who grew up watching her, the loss was deeply felt. Frances Bavier gave Mayberry its heart. She reminded us that family isn't just who you're born to, it's who shows up with kindness, with care, and with a casserole when the world gets too hard. George Lindsey, the simple mechanic with a heart of gold. With his sideways cap, goofy grin, and lovable drawl, Goober Pyle was one of Mayberry's most unforgettable characters, and George Lindsey made sure of it. As the town's affable mechanic, Goober was comic relief in its purest form, but there was never any cruelty in the joke. He was the friend who might not get every detail right, but who would give you the shirt off his back, if he could figure out how to get it off. Born in Alabama in 1928, George Lindsey was a true Southern boy who brought his roots to every performance. After serving in the Air Force and training in theater, he worked his way through the New York stage scene before landing television roles. His big break came when he joined the Andy Griffith Show in 1964, taking over as the town's resident mechanic after Gomer Pyle, played by Jim Nabors, left for his own spin-off. Goober was silly but sweet, clumsy but sincere. He could impersonate Cary Grant, mangle simple sentences, and make an oil change look like a comedy routine. Lindsey played him with complete honesty, never condescending to the character, and audiences adored him for it. He continued the role into Mayberry RFD and later made appearances in Hee Haw, where his country charm found a new home. Off-camera, George Lindsey was warm, generous, and deeply devoted to charity. He raised millions for the Special Olympics and remained active in supporting children's causes throughout the South. He never distanced himself from Goober, in fact, he embraced the legacy. In interviews, he often said that playing a character who made people laugh for decades was the greatest reward of his life. Lindsey passed away on May 6, 2012, at the age of 83, just 2 months before his friend and co-star Andy Griffith. The town of Mayberry lost more than a mechanic that day, it lost one of its purest spirits. George Lindsey showed us that comedy doesn't need to be sharp to be brilliant. Sometimes, a little oil, a crooked hat, and a good heart are all it takes to leave a lasting impression. Howard McNear, the barber who whispered Mayberry's gossip. No trip to Mayberry was complete without a visit to Floyd's barber shop, a cozy corner where haircuts were optional, but conversation was mandatory. As Floyd Lawson, the town's resident barber, Howard McNear brought a uniquely whimsical energy to the show, dreamy, distracted, and oddly profound. With his lilting voice and wide-eyed expressions, Floyd was the town gossip, philosopher, and comic oddball rolled into one. Born in 1905 in Los Angeles, McNear had a long and prolific career in radio before ever stepping onto a TV set. He was a staple of programs like Gunsmoke, where he voiced Doc Adams in over 500 episodes. A master of timing and vocal nuance, McNear's talents were often hidden behind the microphone, but the Andy Griffith Show gave him a face to match the voice. As Floyd, McNear created a character that was both bizarre and beloved. He didn't just cut hair. He drifted through conversations, often going on odd tangents that made everyone stop and smile. Floyd's shop was a place of community, where town secrets floated like hair clippings in the breeze. McNear played him with a delicate balance of eccentricity and warmth. Tragically, in 1963, during the show's run, McNear suffered a major stroke that left him partially paralyzed. Most actors would have retired, but Andy Griffith refused to let go of his friend. The production team rewrote scenes so Floyd could remain seated or supported while filming. Watch closely and you'll notice, in his later episodes, McNear is almost always shown sitting, leaning, or propped, yet still delivering comedy with brilliance. Despite the stroke, McNear remained with the show for several more seasons before his health ultimately forced him to step away. He passed away on January 3, 1969, at the age of 63. Howard McNear left behind more than a quirky barber. He left a portrait of gentle, good-natured oddity. Proof that even in the quietest characters, there can be profound charm. Floyd may have been Mayberry's barbershop philosopher, but McNear was its quiet, enduring soul. Hal Smith, the town drunk who made us laugh and think. In a town as squeaky clean as Mayberry, Otis Campbell was the lovable misfit, a man who regularly locked himself in the town jail after drinking a bit too much elixir. Played with surprising tenderness by Hal Smith, Otis wasn't a figure of ridicule, he was a reflection of small-town tolerance, humor, and quiet redemption. He staggered into our hearts and somehow stayed there, long after the laugh track faded. Hal Smith was born in 1916 in Michigan and began his career in radio before moving into television and film. Though he played dozens of roles in his lifetime, none was more iconic, or more ironically endearing, than Otis. Appearing in nearly 30 episodes, Otis was a recurring comic presence, a man who was more nuisance than threat, and who always maintained a strange dignity, even while hiccuping his way into a jail cell. What made Hal Smith's portrayal stand out was its restraint. He never made Otis mean-spirited or crude. Instead, he gave him a gentleness, a humility, and even a kind of innocence. He was the town's unofficial comic relief, but never the butt of the joke. Otis always knew he had a problem, and more than once, the show hinted at his desire to do better. Ironically, Hal Smith himself was a teetotaler. He didn't drink at all. In fact, later in life, he became active in portraying sober characters and even voiced public service announcements warning against alcohol abuse. His career after the Andy Griffith Show flourished in voice acting, where he became beloved to children as Owl in Winnie the Pooh and dozens of other characters across animated TV. Smith passed away on January 28, 1994, at the age of 77. His death was quiet, much like the man himself, but for those who remembered Otis, it marked the passing of one of Mayberry's most human and heartfelt presences. Hal Smith gave us a character who was more than just the town drunk. He was a reminder that imperfection doesn't mean exclusion. That even in a perfect little town like Mayberry, there was room for grace. Aneta Corsaut, the teacher who captured the sheriff's heart. When Helen Crump arrived in Mayberry, she was meant to be temporary, a one-time character to help flesh out a storyline. But something about Aneta Corsaut's quiet strength, thoughtful delivery, and natural chemistry with Andy Griffith changed everything. Before long, Helen wasn't just a new teacher in town, she became a central figure, the love interest that would redefine Sheriff Andy Taylor's emotional world. Born in 1933 in Kansas, Aneta Corsaut pursued drama and journalism before finding her way to Hollywood. She studied acting under Lee Strasberg and made her film debut opposite Steve McQueen in The Blob, 1958, a cult classic. But it was her transition to television, and her role in the Andy Griffith Show, that gave her a lasting place in TV history. As Helen Crump, she was more than just a romantic subplot. She brought a quiet intelligence and modern sensibility to Mayberry, often challenging Andy's views while maintaining deep respect for him. Their on-screen romance unfolded gradually, and it felt real, understated, tender, and rooted in mutual admiration. In the show's final seasons, Helen became an essential part of the town's evolving fabric. Off-screen, Corsaut was intensely private. She reportedly shared a close personal friendship with Andy Griffith, and some speculated about a deeper relationship, though neither ever confirmed it. Unlike many actresses of her era, she never married and seemed content to live life on her own terms, keeping her personal affairs away from the spotlight. After the Andy Griffith Show, she continued to act in various television series, including a recurring role on Matlock, once again reuniting with Griffith. But she never sought stardom. She preferred the steady path, the quiet roles, and a life beyond Hollywood's glare. Aneta Corsaut passed away on November 6, 1995, at just 62 years old, after a battle with cancer. Her death was a quiet one, much like the grace with which she lived. But for fans of the Andy Griffith Show, the loss was deep. She was the woman who taught Mayberry's children, and its sheriff, that love could be thoughtful, grounded, and enduring. Jack Dodson, the mild-mannered bureaucrat who found his voice in Mayberry. In a town full of big personalities and small-town quirks, Howard Sprague stood out by being perfectly ordinary. As Mayberry's earnest county clerk, Jack Dodson gave life to a character who was bookish, soft-spoken, socially awkward, and quietly hilarious. With his neatly parted hair, pressed suits, and nasal voice, Howard was the kind of man who collected stamps, organized birdwatching clubs, and desperately wanted to be interesting. And somehow, Dodson made all that deeply lovable. Jack Dodson joined the Andy Griffith Show in 1966, near the end of its run, but his impact was immediate. Howard was the kind of character who didn't demand the spotlight, but earned it anyway, through subtle reactions, oddball optimism, and an awkwardness that was deeply relatable. He was the guy who overthought everything, tried a little too hard, and still made you root for him. Born in 1931, Dodson was a classically trained actor, with a background in serious theater before entering television. Andy Griffith reportedly saw him on Broadway and insisted he join the cast. It was a smart move. Dodson's unique blend of dryness and sincerity gave Howard a memorable identity among the colorful residents of Mayberry. Howard continued into Mayberry RFD, where his character was further developed and given more room to explore romance, failure, and small-town ambition. Off-screen, Dodson was known as a generous and dedicated professional. He never craved fame, but his colleagues respected him immensely. After his time in Mayberry, Dodson appeared in numerous TV shows and films, often playing soft-spoken intellectuals or civil servants, a testament to how thoroughly he had embodied that persona. He also reunited with Andy Griffith in later projects, including Matlock. Jack Dodson passed away on September 16, 1994, at the age of 63, from heart failure. His death didn't make headlines, but for fans of the show, it was a quiet heartbreak. He was the man who proved that even in the background, kindness and sincerity could shine. Howard Sprague may have been a pencil-pushing clerk, but thanks to Jack Dodson, he became one of Mayberry's most human faces, a reminder that being ordinary doesn't mean being forgettable. Betty Lynn, the sweetheart of Mayberry who waited for Barney. If Barney Fife was the jittery, excitable deputy of Mayberry, then Thelma Lou was his perfect counterbalance, calm, charming, affectionate, and always ready with a loving smile or a gentle eye roll. Played by the radiant Betty Lynn, Thelma Lou wasn't just Barney's girlfriend, she was a symbol of the steady, patient love that grounded even the most chaotic hearts. Betty Lynn was born in 1926 in Kansas City, Missouri, and her early life was touched by both talent and hardship. Trained in music and drama, she toured with the USO during World War II, performing for troops overseas. Her Hollywood career began in the late 1940s, where she starred in films alongside legends like Bette Davis and Clifton Webb. But it wasn't until The Andy Griffith Show that she found her most beloved role. As Thelma Lou, Betty brought grace and sincerity to a role that could have easily been one-dimensional. She made Thelma Lou warm but never weak, supportive but never submissive. Her scenes with Don Knotts were comedic gold, full of genuine chemistry and sweet frustration. She wasn't in every episode, but when she was, you felt her presence, always grounding Barney's chaos with a kind word or an affectionate smirk. After the show, Betty Lynn stepped back from acting, appearing in only a handful of roles. But she remained deeply connected to Mayberry and its fans. In the 2000s, she moved to Mount Airy, North Carolina, Andy Griffith's real-life hometown and the town believed to have inspired Mayberry. There, she became a local treasure, appearing regularly at Andy Griffith festivals and meeting fans well into her 90s. Betty Lynn passed away on October 16, 2021, at the age of 95. Her death marked the end of a gentle era, a reminder that kindness, patience, and a little faith in love could leave just as strong a mark as any big dramatic role. She never got to marry Barney on screen, but in the hearts of fans, Thelma Lou was always his forever. And Betty Lynn? She was always Mayberry's sweetheart. Denver Pyle, the mountain music patriarch who brought grit to Mayberry. Among the many colorful personalities that visited Mayberry, none were quite like Briscoe Darling, the grizzled, no-nonsense mountain man with a banjo in one hand and a stern word in the other. As the patriarch of the musical Darling family, Briscoe was rugged, stoic, and oddly poetic. And in the hands of Denver Pyle, he became one of the most memorable recurring characters in The Andy Griffith Show. Denver Pyle was born in 1920 in Colorado and brought a true Western grit to his roles. A World War II veteran and lifelong character actor, he had appeared in countless film and television roles before arriving in Mayberry. But it was as Briscoe Darling that he etched himself into classic TV history. Briscoe wasn't your average Mayberry citizen. He spoke in few words, moved like a mountain wind, and had little patience for the modern world. But when he and his musical family rolled into town, usually unannounced, they brought an energy that was raw, real, and unforgettable. Pyle's deadpan delivery and stoic demeanor turned Briscoe into a fan favorite, even though he only appeared in a handful of episodes. What made Denver Pyle's performance so effective was the authenticity he brought to it. He wasn't imitating mountain culture, he lived and breathed that rugged Americana. After the Andy Griffith Show, he continued to portray rugged father figures, most famously as Uncle Jesse in The Dukes of Hazzard, where he again played the wise elder who watched over a rowdy family. Off-screen, Pyle was deeply respected in the industry and known for his generosity. He even established a foundation for children's charities later in life, putting his earnings toward causes close to his heart. Denver Pyle passed away on December 25, 1997, at the age of 77, after a battle with lung cancer. His death on Christmas Day added a bittersweet note to a career that had brought warmth to so many. In Mayberry, Briscoe Darling may have been a man of few words, but Denver Pyle's legacy speaks volumes, a testament to how even the roughest edges can bring out the deepest truths in a simple, heartfelt story. As the years pass and the streets of Mayberry grow quieter in memory, the voices that once filled that small, fictional town continue to echo in the hearts of those who loved it. The Andy Griffith Show was never about spectacle or sensational plots, it was about people. Honest, flawed, funny, and deeply human people. And the actors who brought them to life did more than perform, they became part of our families, week after week, season after season. Today, 10 of those familiar faces have left us. Andy Griffith, the sheriff who never needed a gun. Don Knotts, the jittery deputy who made us laugh through his vulnerability. Francis Bavier, who poured maternal strength and quiet sorrow into every homemade pie. George Lindsey's Goober, who gave comedy a big heart. And Floyd the barber, Otis the town drunk, Helen the teacher, Howard the clerk, Thelma Lou the sweetheart, and Briscoe Darling with his mountain music and mountain soul. Each of them left more than just a performance. They left behind lessons, about kindness, patience, dignity, and the beauty in simplicity. Their lives weren't always easy, and not every ending was wrapped in the same warmth they brought to the screen. But that's what makes their stories so powerful. They were real. Their joys and losses mirrored our own. We watch the Andy Griffith Show today not just out of nostalgia, but because it still offers something rare, a reminder that gentleness is strength, that humor doesn't have to be cruel, and that a small town filled with big hearts can leave a mark that lasts a lifetime. As we say goodbye to these stars, we don't let go. We remember them in every rerun, in every whistle of the theme song, in every soft lesson tucked between scenes. Mayberry may have been a fictional town, but the love it gave us, and the people who gave it life, were very, very real. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Don. Thank you, all.